Let's talk about mental health. Mental health is a very important aspect of spirituality. There are four bodies of the being: there's the mental, the spiritual, the physical, and the emotional. Mental health is important so that, and mental health really describes both the mental and emotional aspects of our energy, of our bodies. Um, it encompasses that as a whole. The important thing is to have good mental health, because good mental health means you're thinking positively, you're manifesting positively, you're putting positive energy out, you're confident in yourself, you know who you are, and you're able to step into your authentic self. A lot of people struggle when it comes to mental health: depression, anxiety, worry, all these different things, fear, even just fear, all relates to mental health. A lot of it comes from past trauma, it comes from past cycles, past repetitions and patterns, things that we've done previously. But we can shift it. We can all shift into a better state of mental health. When I was with my partner years ago, my ex-partner, uh, we had a conversation, and I knew I was in a lower mental health state. I was depressed constantly, just sad. Uh, at that time, I didn't actually know what happiness was. I had never been taught happiness. All I knew really was fear, and the fear of provide for everybody because be afraid of their response. And through my toxic relationship, I realized that I needed to take care of my mental health. So in a sense, that relationship, although it was very toxic for me, it helped put me on this path of spirituality, but it was also a pattern I needed to shift. It was a pattern that kept me in the cycle of low mental health, even though it helped break me into the awareness of I need to change my mental health. So I started going to counseling, and I had started talking and speaking about what, my past was. And it's as simple as that. A lot of people don't have someone to talk to. And finding someone to talk to is a very key step in creating a strong form of mental health, because it helps you process and release trauma from your past. It helps you release energy, and it helps you understand why your patterns exist, why you keep having the same things over and over again. I have clients that come to me often and say, I don't understand why my life is like this. It just seems like it's one bad thing after another, one bad thing after another. If your life is like that, you're manifesting it. You're manifesting it either through thought patterns or repetitive patterns of life choices, or karmic patterns of lessons you need to learn and break free of. There could be a variety of reasons, but mental health, strong mental health, is a key in that, to make sure you're confident and able to choose what's authentic to you. It allows you to break free of the ways you've been programmed as a child, from society, from your parents, from religions, etc. Strong mental health gives you the ability to choose for yourself, gives you the ability to speak up for yourself. So it's important on this journey to work on your mental health. If you're experiencing depression, anxiety, worry, fear, anger, jealousy, any of these low vibrational emotions that affect your mental health, seek out, if you're in one of those states where you feel the need to. Remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm just here to guide you on a spiritual journey. But if you're in one of those states where things are really bad with your mental health and you feel you need help immediately, seek help immediately. Seek professional help from somebody. But if you're in one of those states where you know you can work on it yourself, and it is within our own power for all of us to work on our mental health, when you know you can do that, you don't have to seek outside of yourself necessarily. You can just speak to the universe, tell your story, speak through it. I recently had a client where guides told them, go to a tree. There was a tree they liked. Go to a tree, sit by the tree, tell the tree your story. Tell the tree your traumas. Speak the traumas. Release the energy and cry through it if you can. Allow yourself to cry. Allow yourself to feel. There's this whole idea in society that crying and feeling is a bad thing. It's not. It's a way of releasing. It's a way of releasing past energy and past trauma. And when we go through these phases of, you could essentially call them dark nights of the soul, where we're reviewing our traumas and releasing them and crying and, processing and healing, they don't just stop with one. It continues on and on and on because we're releasing trauma. At first, we release all the trauma that we can feel, that we're aware of. And then as we dig, it's layers. It's layers and layers. When I worked with my counselor, we started at the top, the layer that was obvious, with my father and doing different things. And then we worked down and got through the hidden layers and talked through the hidden layers of things that I had forgotten about until I was talking about them in the moment. So you'll find other things you need to heal as you work through this process. But it's key to talk to somebody, talk to the universe. You don't necessarily need a counselor unless you feel that you are in a state where it is detrimental to your livelihood. In those states, never hesitate seeking professional medical advice when it comes to those types of things. Never hesitate. I wasn't in a state like that. I mean, I never went for the act of taking my life, but I had thoughts of it ever since high school, because even in high school, I had thought, what would happen if I had taken my life, and had even thought about doing it at times where the only thing that brought me back was other people have lives worse than me. And that's what I remember always thinking, that other people have lives worse than me, so why can't I get through this? I can figure this out. I can move forward. It didn't invalidate what I was going through with the traumas and abuses I was experiencing, but it was a way for me to understand and process and continue forward. And then when I found my counselor, I was healing through all of those things that got me to that state. But talking to that one person who was willing to listen to what I said without judgment, and willing to help me and guide me and ask me questions and not tell me what to do. That was the key. They didn't tell me what to do. They asked me questions to get me thinking, to plant seeds, to make me wonder, what do I do next? It is really how you figure out how to be your authentic self, is through processing those traumas. People often ask me, how do I be my authentic self? You have to work on you. You have to work on your mental health, processing your traumas, processing your emotions, processing all the things you don't want to think about, all those horrible things that people did to you, all the events. Learning forgiveness, speaking forgiveness to them, to the universe, working through all of that to create a better mind space. A better mind space is stronger, more powerful, and manifests more positive in your life. But mental health is important in this process. And if you're somebody who avoids it because you've been taught that there's nothing wrong, a lot of us are taught when we're growing up, you don't need to see a counselor or a therapist. You don't need the help of these people. There's nothing wrong with you. If you need those people, you're broken. That's wrong. That's the wrong idea. It's not that you're broken. It's that you're healing. You're trying to heal energy. You're trying to transmute energy. You're trying to release energy. And sometimes we need the help of others. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to go to people and say, I really need help. Can you help me? And get advice to see where you can go next, what you can do. And it's important to find somebody who will listen to your story judgment-free, who won't necessarily tell you what to do, but will let you figure it out so that you can heal. Because if they tell you what to do, you're not necessarily going to heal. You have to work through all of the emotions. Like they can tell you, here are the techniques and stuff to do, but I found from my own journey it was a lot better that my counselor would ask me questions and make me think about it, make me ruminate, so that the next time we had a session, I spent the week thinking about things. And then once I had the answer, she would go, okay, now that you have the answer to that question, this is what you do. But she would always ask questions to make me process. But in the end, I found out too, although I'm extremely grateful for who I worked with her for 5 years. And I continued my journey of healing after that process. I continued because there was a lot of trauma in my past, a lot of trauma. And not just in my past, but one of the things I avoided in my sessions was my partner, my ex from my ex now, my partner at the time. And I remember her even saying, like, you have a lot of patience for this person when that topic came up. And now realizing she was planting seeds of, is this really what you want? Is this really what you want? And I had to heal my mental health around that person while in the relationship, which meant sitting in my room by myself, meditating, going into nature, telling the spirits my problems, and them talking to me. They were my counselors. I went to New Mexico and they started asking me questions. The gnomes were like, oh, who's this energy around you? We see this energy. Who is she? And then they started asking me questions, and then asking really personal questions about, why don't you do this? Why don't you marry her? Why don't you do this? They were my counseling sessions. So I was speaking to what in a lot of cases people think isn't there, which is the same, one of the things you can do too. You can go out to a tree, sit by a tree and talk to it. Keep your mind open. Maybe you'll hear questions. Maybe your guides will plant questions for you to ask. And think about them. Answer them, but really think about them. Let them ruminate. Why did they ask that question? I didn't realize for, before my ex and I split, 3 weeks before, the gnomes were asking me, why won't you marry her? And my answer every time was, well, because every time I think about it, something happens to make me realize I can't do it at this time, and I'm waiting for her to heal. I was in a situation where I was healing rapidly. I was raising my vibration. I was healing. I was becoming a beam of light, a glow in their opinion. And the more I glowed, the more I saw the darkness pushing against me in that relationship. I was healing myself on my own through nature, through working with the spirits, through talking to my guides, through meditating. I was healing myself without the help of an outside human. I was working on my mental health, my confidence. They started coming to me and they started saying, you need to do X, Y, Z. You need to take action and start speaking your truth. One of those was in the lies and manipulations I was seeing. She had been lying to me for years about certain things, and I had known it. I had known it from the beginning. It was part of the reason I the first 2 years I was with her, I was with her. I left for the reason was that she was spending too much time with her family, friends, and other people and coworkers rather than me. And she was putting everybody first, even all of her everything, work, academics. Hey, I'm going to take a trip and be with her parents, all this other stuff. Always putting other people first. This was a narcissistic dynamic. And I'm not saying I don't have my fault, didn't have my faults at the time, but I left because I realized there was a pattern where I wasn't valued. I wasn't valued in the relationship because anytime somebody else said jump, they jumped there, but they were only around when it was convenient for them to be around me. So the relationship split. But at that time, I knew the lies and manipulations and these things were going on. I knew intuitively. I was very awake and intuitive. And people might ask, well, then why did you stay? Because my mental health wasn't good. My mental health was terrible. Even though I knew what was going on, I stayed because I thought that was what I was meant to have. That's what I knew. That's the dynamic I knew. I knew to be in a dynamic where I stay quiet, people lie to the world and I don't speak my truth. That was the dynamic with my father. I'm not allowed to speak my truth. I'm not allowed to feel. I'm suppressed while the other person isn't, and they do whatever they want. I was in a low state of mental health. So when I broke up that first time and I went into a 3 months, I don't remember how long we were apart, she came back. And I knew she came back in a way that was not coincidence, as she said. I knew it was all planned. But even though I knew that, it's one of those things where I made my choice because that is what I knew. And I did have love for this person, a lot of love for this person. That's the love I knew, the type of love I knew. So I went back, and then I stayed for another 9 years. I stayed, and as soon as I started again, as soon as everything calmed down, these cycles of things would get good, and then she would start doing her things again. And my mental health would be terrible. My mental health would be way, way, way down. Not saying hers was good either. We all had our dark sides. But I couldn't get myself out because of my mental health. I wasn't strong enough to say no. I wasn't strong enough to speak my truth. I wasn't strong enough to be confident in myself. I wasn't strong enough to be confident in my intuition. Once I started building my vibration, raising my vibration, not knowing what the term meant, I was raising my vibration. I was working through my own traumas with my father. I cleared them. And I still have, pieces and things I'm working through. Like, as most spiritual people do, we work through them for quite a while, trying to unpack the layers and get deeper and deeper and get the little fragments and pull them out and release them. But once that was cleared, it freed me to realize what was going on in the relationship because my mental health was far better. My mental health was more confident because I had cleared trauma. And then I started looking around the situation around me and going, I'm right. My intuition's right, because I could trust my intuition now that I was working through my mental health, building confidence with my intuition and guides, building confidence in nature. So then my guides started bringing me the proof of all these different things. A lot of stuff with finances, just bringing it little by little and going, you need to pay attention to this. Here's a sign, here's a sign, here's a sign. You need to talk to her. And my deal with them was I can't, because of this situation, I was like, I can't confront unless I have proof. And so they brought me proof. Now, the lesson I learned in that is if your intuition is telling you something is wrong, you don't need to wait for proof. You need to trust your intuition. You need to trust and be confident in yourself. Because if you feel something's wrong, then something's off. Now, what it is the question. That's the hard part to figure out, and that's why you need to raise your vibration. You need to clear your traumas. You need to work with your spiritual team to get clarity on what is going on. I knew exactly what was going on. For the most part, I didn't know all of it. I found out more after I left. But I knew enough that I was like in a relationship stuck, miserable, knowing this person is going about doing things that aren't in our highest good, that aren't in our mutual benefit. And I couldn't say anything because I thought I was meant to be in that relationship and couldn't pull it apart. My mental health was not at its highest. So I kept working. I kept going into the woods. Guys be like, go into the woods, go into the woods. I'd go into the woods. I'd speak my problems. I'd cry, I'd shout, which is hard for me. I wasn't allowed ever to shout, so it's hard for me to speak up. If you meet me in person, I'm very soft-spoken, and that's a trauma thing because I wasn't allowed to talk as a child. And when I did talk, I was told I was lying. No matter how honest I was wrong, I was lying, I was a fraud, etc., etc. And it was because I really knew more than my parents. I knew a lot more than my parents, and it threatened them. So they pushed me down. Not my mom, more my dad. My dad would always do that. to the point that, I mean, when I was 16, 17, he'd have me in tears at the dining room table, yelling at me for things I was right about. I had to deal with that mental health. I had to deal with the ability to speak, learning to speak, so that I could get out of my relationship. If you're in a toxic relationship, none of you deserve to be in a toxic relationship, ever. And that was one of the things I learned. Trusting my intuition to realize none of us deserve a toxic relationship. I don't care how much you love a person. You do not deserve a toxic relationship. You deserve something far more loving, caring, compatible, mutual, happy, joyous. And you're all worthy of that and all deserving of it, all deserving of love. But it's your job to take care of your mental health, to raise your vibration, to speak about your traumas, not to just stew about them in your mind, but to speak them. And one of the ways to do that is to go to a counselor or a therapist or another mental health professional. Another way to do that is to go into the woods, to go into nature, to speak to nature and the universe, to understand there are others out there who are going to help you. You may not be able to see them, but you may just feel a thought, an image, a flash, a knowing. The more you speak and release trauma, the more confidence you'll build. You also need to speak your truth, speaking your truth and saying no, setting boundaries, letting people know what's not acceptable to you in a healthy way. It's not about fighting. It's not, some people say no and they just say no and they go right into an argument. You have to do it. You have to learn to do it in a healthy way. And there are tools out there to help you do that, but that's not for this session. It's a more psychological topic that a counselor can walk you through. Or you can probably find them online. And I teach from my standpoint, my experience, so I'll probably have a video at some point. But my experience of saying no won't work for everybody. You also have to learn to walk away. Sometimes it's in our best interest to walk away, to ghost people. A lot of people hate being ghosted. And we have to remember one of the next sections I'm talking about is about reaction versus response. We're not responsible for how people react. We're responsible for us, for our mental health. And if somebody is abusing you, if somebody is creating trauma and unwilling to listen to you, unwilling to work through it, unwilling to do better, then it's time to walk away. It's time to take care of yourself, take care of your mental health. When you take care of your mental health, you release your traumas. When you release your traumas, you raise your vibration. And when you release your traumas, you're able to connect. One of the big traumas is grief. When you release the grief around your ancestors, you can begin communicating with your ancestors. Grief is a block. All the low vibrational emotions are blocks. So you have to release them and learn to work through them. And then as you raise your vibration, you actually start to realize you don't get angry anymore. You don't get jealous. You don't get sad or fearful, at least not as often. You will sometimes, but not as often. You work through it. You learn how to transmute it. And then when it does come up, you learn that you can recognize it and you know exactly what to do, which means going out into nature, releasing, doing a meditation, processing through questions and meditations, working with water, working with the woods, whatever you're doing. But when it comes to a point that you are above those lower emotions, you can recognize them when you're in them, and you know the process that works for you to get you out of it. And that's a key for spirituality, because if you live in those lower emotions, you're going to live in lower vibrations. And it's the same with like ETs and stuff. They have frustration, they have all the emotions, but if they experience it, they know immediately how to shift out of it. And that's something they're not responding right accurately. So learn to deal with your mental health, and remember, it's okay to ask for help. If you need the help of a medical professional, don't hesitate. It's okay to ask for help. Other methods, like I said, are walking into nature and talking to a tree, working through meditation, talking to your guides. But release your trauma. Work on your mental health. Work on why you're worried, anxious, sad, depressed, angry, grieving, jealous, afraid. Work through them. It's hard work. This is the part people don't talk about with spirituality. It is difficult, hard work to face your traumas. And to continue doing that, there will be a lot of crying, a lot of release, a lot of anger, a lot of feelings that you don't want to feel. But you have to feel them. You have to feel them to release them and go through those steps rather than holding on to them. If you hold on to them, they block you. You have to release them to let the energy flow. And when the energy flows, your vibration raises, your confidence raises, your abilities flood in, and spirit can talk. So work on that. If you have any questions about mental health, about my journey, please ask me. I'm being pushed to share more of the dark side of my journey, so to speak, and am happy to share that. So if you have questions, let me know and I'll make more videos. But thank you for watching, and please take care of your mental health. Remember, you are all deserving, you are all worthy, you are all loved and worthy and deserving of love. I love you, and I'm grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you.